All right, so in this video, we're going to make a fish prop real quick. So this might be something you find in like a market or something like that. And you might need a fish on ice. And so that's what we're going to create. And we're going to do it just using a photograph and kind of extracting from the image itself to create all the texture work for the most part. What you want to do is press Shift A. You might want to do this in the top viewport, top orthographic. So rotate or orbit and then hold Alt while you orbit up to the top and it'll go to top orthographic. Press Shift A. We're going to do an image reference and we're going to open up an image reference. Now I'm going to load up texture.jpg here. You can see it has a white trim around it. The original image was some other offsetting there. GR, when you're creating textures for the game, you have to create them in powers of 2. So look up on Google powers of 2. That's like 2 squared, 2 to the third power, or 2 whatever, you know. So the way that works out is that you're going to end up with like 256 by 256 images or 512 by 512. You can do 512 by 256, etc. As long as it's a power of 2 in both directions, you'll be good. And so take your image, crop it. I usually overcrop it so that way I still have the original image, but I'll just have a little bit of extra and a little bit of borders there. Not a big deal. So you go ahead and import that background image, that reference image, and we're going to create this fish. He has a little bit of a curve to him I don't really care for. I'm going to fix that. We're going to model him with enough detail that we can actually just bend him back. It's not going to be a big deal. But we're going to model him as we see him here. Very simple and easy to do. We're just take our reference, press GZ, move it down a little bit. We're going to leave the 3D cursor right in the center. It's very important that you do that, so make sure it's still there. We're going to lock this guy. So go to this little orange square and it's object properties there. We're going to go to visibility and uncheck selectable. So now you can't select them. You can go to this little tab, the little image, the red image thing, and you'll see you have some options here on how you can affect this. You can make it transparent, make it show up to in the front or the back. I'm just going to leave it as is. Go back to the top view, press Shift A, create mesh and plane. I'm going to start creating them off of a plane. I'm going to press Alt Z. Wait, where'd it go? Where did it go? Okay, try this again. Shift A, mesh, plane. Alt Z. Okay, it is transparent now. So it's very transparent. So we can see our thing here. This is the times you might want to, you can't select this background image, but you can in the scene collection up here. These are the kind of times you might want to bump things down a little bit so that you can see them. You can see I still can't select it. I can select that. Okay, so let's go into edit mode, press S, scale it down. Do this in edit mode. When you create it, as soon as you create the plane, go to edit mode and start scaling. And we're just going to start lining things up. I'm going to use edges to do this. Press, because we're working top down and it's just a plane on the Z axis. We can scale it, rotate it, do all kinds of fun stuff. If it was a object that had some volume to it, you wouldn't want to scale it. Just keep that in mind because it would start changing your width or your height as well. So everything would start getting a little crazy. You would want to scale by pressing S Shift Z, and then you could scale that way. That would be fine. So that it only stays in the X and Y axis. We are going to bend him, so I want to get him with a little bit of extra topology. We can go back and optimize it later. And then we want to line up on this top one here. Just a little bit. This one we can bring out. You can hold control and just right click out. You can do that all the way down real quick in a couple areas. And then we're just going to use that to build the mesh. We're going to make them low poly as much as possible. Now, I don't think GR needs a really detailed fish in a market because you're probably going to make a couple of these and stack them next to each other on ice in a cooler or whatever. It's kind of on you. But what I would do personally is just get a little extra so we can bend him back and then go back and try to break him down as simple as possible towards the end. Now, getting the overall silhouette, though, is, I think, pretty important. So you can certainly do that. Try to get it just right. I might add a For example, right here, I want another cut just to bring this down a little bit, and something like so. This doesn't need to be that far back. Try to even up your polygons as much as possible. These fins, you can cut them out and create them if you want. I'm gonna only do one. I don't think he needs more than a couple. So I'm just grabbing the edge, pressing E, extruding, scaling all the way down. Not real complicated, this guy. Right at the mouth, I want an edge, so I'm going to leave it there. And towards the front, I want some more edges. I'm going to put this towards the bottom of his lip. This is going to go towards the top of his lip, somewhere right around there. And just move it into place. All right. This guy, like I said, you could do all these fins if you really wanted to. It's kind of on you. It's not really required. Very easy little model to make. I just pressed E on something and it made a double. Okay. This top fin, let's do it real quick. Just select that whole edge. We're going to pull it all the way out, scale it down. We're going to leave it as an edge like that for now. We're going to add a loop cut. Position this so it has a little curvature to it. Like so. This one can go back in a little bit. All right, so we got this fish cut out pretty well. What I want to do is grab these, make these kind of cuts right here real quick. Okay, so pressing K, you can use the knife tool to make that cut. And then also cut one more time right here, so we have a little triangle at the end. That's important. It's not real important, but it's fairly important. You'll see why. I'll talk about it in a little bit. All right, make sure you're in the top view. Now we're going to press Control R. We're going to do a loop cut all the way down. We're going to mouse wheel up once, do it twice. Take this face and delete it. Once you delete that face, you'll have the option of going back and tweaking his mouth a little bit. We don't need a lot of detail in his mouth, trust me. Just need a little bit. I want to have a little bit of a rise here going through his face. Okay. The rest of him could follow along something similar. It didn't loop cut all the way down because I cut those. All right, so we're going to have to just manually do it. I shouldn't have loop cut first. Should have did all this first, but so we're going to do this number all the way down as if it was a loop cut. Okay. Position these like so. You know, you can cut off quite a bit of his fin. It wouldn't really matter. And we're in business now. I'm going to bring this one up a little. This one up a little. Just reposition it to follow along with his thickness. He's got a little bit of thickness to him. A quick way to do that is you could just hold Control, click, select one, hold Control and click, and then press G twice to slide them down. Do something like that. You can also select one by holding Shift, click there, and then what you'll do is click all the way down, something like that. You can press, when you have all these selected, make sure you're selecting vertices, right click, and then you'll have this little option, smooth vertices. You can do that once or twice if you want, kind of smooth it all out. No biggie there. And then you can also just go through and reposition it again with sliding it a little bit. I think that works out pretty well. It makes it nice and smooth for the most part. These sections I want to be a little bit higher. Okay. So we're just kind of mimicking the shape and form of this guy. That's all we're doing. Like these guys I want to be brought out a little bit, scaled down, so it mimics this little shape here. Not a big deal. These ones can come down a little bit. This one can come down a little bit. I don't want to get too close to the edge there, but just enough. All right, so the way this works is all the way down this area is the width of our fish. Okay, so we can go into perspective here. Press G, Z, and we can slide it up like so. Okay, get the main body section going first, I think, is the best way to do this. Main body section. Make them as thick or as thin as you want. Now, I want to have it transition smoothly along like it's a fish. You know, they have a little shape to them. The way I'm going to do that is I'm going to press O, select the face, and you'll notice if I press G and Z and I have proportional editing on by pressing O, it'll do this number, except it's moving the whole thing. I don't want to move the whole thing. Very, very quick, easy fix. Press Shift H select these faces on top here. Press Shift H, and you'll see that there are only ones left. Everything else that was just hidden, you can't modify it. So I can press GZ here now, make this a big wheel, bring it down a little bit. All right, GZ again, make the wheel, make the circle a little smaller, and you're doing that with the mouse wheel. That's why I say the wheel, the mouse wheel. Okay, and so we can do that number and get it pretty thin. We don't want it completely thin, but pretty thin. I do want them to be a little bit bulkier in the middle here. So I'm going to just bring that up a little bit. Maybe this edge, I'll bring it up just a tiny bit as well. Okay, so now we can press, go back into object mode to see it real quick, or just press Alt-H and bring it back. You can see we got our fish going. He's looking pretty good. It's not too bad. The mouth here, real easy to create this because of it's only these little polygons. Press E, Z, bring it down, and we're going to press N. We're going to press SZ. Oh, turn off proportional editing for this. SZ0. Okay. Bring it down to 0 on the Z axis. Grab the mouth bottom there, those two edges, press F. Top one, F. Good there. His head, I want it to be a little bit. I like his mouth for the most part. It's pretty close. I want to have a little bit more curvature to him in some areas. All right, let's see. This is decent, but I'm gonna make it a little thinner. I want just a little curve in here. It's a tiny bit. I think it just looks a little bit better. Now GR doesn't need all that, but I think that's good right there. So that's kind of the shape of a fish. I think we're in business now. And you'll notice that here in the back, these come down to a really thin point, but you want to have just a little bit of a rise to this area. Just a tiny bit. Doesn't need a lot. But enough so that the model displays correctly in game. Now you'll notice over here that this little area that we cut out has no rise to it at all. The first thing I'm going to do is just grab this little area, press G, Z, and I can bring it up like so. Or there's other methods to do this, but where you cut more geometry in here and you can slide it. But I'm just going to press G and Z and go with the quicker way and just see how it works out. And G and Z on this one, make it a little bit thicker. And then last but not least, this little point, GZ here as well. The reason you do the little point is if this was a square, it might do this number like this one's almost about to do, where every square polygon is two triangles put together. So what ends up happening is, let me zoom in on that, is that sometimes you'll end up with a thing where, like if this was a square here at the very tip, even if I raised it a little, sometimes you'll get little flat areas that come out. And so you'll have like a perfectly flat polygon. Even though it looks like a quad that raises up, it'll have a little section that does that number. So, pay close attention to things like that because you really need to have some kind of bulk when you have a model dead end like this where it's going to be mirrored. It's pretty important. Okay, let's shade it smooth real quick, see what's going on with it. Looks pretty good. We're going to mirror it. So we're going to go to this tool panel here, our modifiers panel, and click mirror. You can see that it mirrored it on X automatically. We want to do Z, so it goes on at the bottom. And look here, we have a polygon doing exactly what I was talking about. You see how it's a quad, but it's flat, so it does that number. That's what you need to look out for. I'm glad that popped up so you can see what I'm talking about. You can fix that in 3ds Max 5 by just flipping the triangle around. In Blender, you got to do a cut. And, so just press K, pull out the knife tool, do a cut, and that'll fix that right up. So it just kind of tells it where that polygon really needed to go to begin with. Back here, we got some funkiness going on. You can see, once again, it's doing the same thing. Right here. Good. It had a couple errors like that. Cut it. Now watch what happens. See how that works? Okay, again. Perfect. There's nothing wrong with that now. Okay, and then, cut out your other fins if you need to, or if you want to. In this situation, you see how this is sharp? That's because these polygons are, it's an n-gon. It has more than 4 sides, so you can redefine those just by doing another cut right here. It might give you a little bit of a weird shading effect, kind of creates like a little square area, but it's not too bad overall. There's other types of topology you might want to use, but I think for GR purposes, if I slide that down this way a little, it's a little, I can't say that I really like it a whole lot, but it's not too bad. You'd have to, if you really wanted to make it right, you would have to do a lot of cutting around this and kind of stretching it out a little bit, but I don't know if it's worth it. Let's try this. Let's try doing a cut from here to here, and then taking this and dissolving it. Let's see what that does. It does nothing. Let's try a cut from here to here. See, it just moves it though. It moved it. It didn't do much. All right, let's do the proper way. Proper way is not the fun way. I'm going to do this cut all along the side here. This is going to be like a control loop. And in theory, the control loop should, I want to move it a little bit. Move it up a little bit. Should cancel out that shading issue. Just enough. Except it's still doing it on the other side. I don't know why it's doing it on the other side now. Let's reapply the mirror and see if that had any effect. Where are these triangles being brought together? Right here? Gonna have to get serious on this one now, huh? So this is just not doing what I expected at all. Try bringing that control loop in a little bit tighter. I'm going to merge everything. I mean, it's close. It's real close. It's not quite there, though. Let's delete these real quick. run a polygon here. And then we'll put a triangle right there. Way back out there. That should alleviate that back one. Yeah, that looks a lot better. Let's try it on the front too. Sometimes you got to play with your mesh, figure these little things out. So we'll put the polygons on the top. And that looks way nicer. So you can see that the shading, even on the back side, well, it's hard to see the back side, but it looks a lot nicer. Okay. He is shaded smooth, and sometimes you get what you get out of that. Might add an extra loop cut in here. Dissolve those two edges. Whoa, no, what the? Limited dissolve edge. Oh, that didn't work. Well, now, isn't that interesting? Limited dissolve should just get rid of it, but it's not. Doesn't always work, I guess. All right, fine, be that way. We're gonna do a cut. This will turn it into two quads. Watch. Bam. Should have, anyways. You can connect. That's a little trick. You can connect two triangles together. It'll turn them into quads. So now we got a little triangle cut going in those little areas. So yeah, okay. You know, that's a modeling thing. This shouldn't have been that complicated. It's just a fish. But you get the idea. It's a really well-made fish now. Topology is looking pretty good. I want it to bend correctly when I go to redo the position on it. See, like this, I'm not happy with that at all. I'm going to do another cut real close to it. I want these up here. Like that. So I'm just sliding them. And I'm going to slide this one back. That was not, I'm not happy about that one at all. Okay. We could do the same thing over here with these little fins if we really wanted to. I don't personally think they make that much of a difference on the fish. I mean, it's just the idea of a fish in a freezer. That's all you really need to see. He's got a fin. He's got another fin. It's good for the most part. Nobody's gonna notice. So we're gonna go into the UV editing window. Go to the top view. Very easy to UV edit this guy. We're gonna press U, project from view, and what ends up happening is he does this number. Now I know for a fact that that's gonna be way too small. Let's add texture.jpg here. Make sure it lines up. Try it again. U, project from view bounds, project from view. Yeah, so he's very, very small. We're going to rescale it and just position it manually. Now, we haven't changed the rotation or nothing, so there's no reason to do anything but other than scale and move to reline them up, which is really going to help you out because otherwise you start rotating it and stuff, you're going to have problems. If you need to make really small incremental changes, what you do is you press G, Shift, and then hold Shift, and you can move really small, fine amounts. And that works pretty well. Some things here I don't like. I want to get these as close as possible. I am shifting it around a little bit, the UV map, but it'll be okay for the most part. Some of these I don't like though. They just look like they're hanging off the edge a little too much. Very close though, right? Okay, so just getting a little bit tighter on the edge. And like this one here, I want to bring in maybe even up a little. All right. That's it for UV mapping. Now if we go back to our layout view, we can hide the empty just by unchecking the eyeball over here, the reference image. We can switch it over to texture. We didn't apply the texture to him yet, so that didn't pop up. We're going to turn specular lighting off too. We'll do that in a second. Under materials, I'm going to click new. You can use the principled BSDF shader for Blender. I usually switch it over to diffuse just because it doesn't use as much memory and stuff. Go to image texture. If you didn't see what I did, under color, click the little dot, click image texture. We're going to load up by clicking the little icon, texture.jpg, and you'll see that we have our fish in here now, like so. Real quick, the specular lighting really drives me nuts with low poly models, so I turn that off. And it'll come in and look a little bit clearer and sharper. For the most part, he's pretty much done. You can see that he's got a nice fishy shape to him. He's nothing special, really. Let's go into edit mode, though. We do have to UV map these two little areas. So you see here. Let's go to the UV window for this, actually. These couple little areas in his mouth we need to map. We haven't done those, or they don't look that great the way they are right now. So we're gonna select those three faces. Come in here, press U, unwrap. It's just going to change to whatever size it wants. We're going to make these really small. We're not doing a lot of detail on this. Trust me. And we're going to rotate them. There. Okay, so now we got that done. We go back to our layout. You'll see that I just swapped in a bunch of brown stuff, which works. But I'm going to go back real quick. I want it to be even smaller and darker. So I'm going to find the darkest pixel I can find. Place it right there. Okay, now we go back to layout view. You can see the inside of his mouth is looking appropriate. So in game, you know, not a big deal. Nobody's going to know that you did that. And I think that's pretty much it for the fish. You know, you can't really do much more to it than that other than fix the tail, which is the last thing we're doing. So in edit mode, this is one of the times you will use proportional editing potentially. So press O. You're going to kind of move them and rotate them around. Make sure when you do this that under options, and you're in edit mode, when you're in edit mode under options, don't check correct face attributes, because what's going to end up happening is your textures will stay where they're at and your model won't move. So I want to rotate this whole section real quick. I don't know if I need proportional editing for this. Actually, I probably will later on, but I'm gonna rotate it, press G, X, bring it down. Yeah, something like that. And just, no, G, R, and R and X. No, why is it not rotating? What's going on here? Just press R, I guess. G was to move it. This tail section, I don't know why I keep doing that. This is in top orthographic. Make sure you're doing it in top orthographic, or you'll mess up your mirror. Yeah, so I'm just gonna nudge it around so I get a perfect looking little fish the way I like it. These can be brought in a little bit. Sometimes you might want to turn that on, correct face attributes, because like I'm moving this little area, I might just want to move the topology, not the texture. And sometimes that'll work just fine. Other times you want to turn it off, because I actually do want the texture to come with this. So I might bring it up a little bit, just so he has more of a fish appearance on the tail area. Great, so now we created a fish. Let's save it. We'll go ahead and save that as fish on ice. And we can throw these into your level somewhere where there's a market, or hanging on a streamer from near a pier or something. Completely useful. Nobody's going to notice that there's little spots of ice on them. They'll just think that's part of the texture probably, but for the most part, it's pretty good. Now, let's say you did want to take this guy and you wanted to lay him kind of sporadically on a dock or something. We're going to create a plane real quick. Slide it over to the side, press S and scale it up. Real simple to do this. What we're going to do is press Shift D, Shift Z, so we can copy him. I'm going to lay him out. I'm going to make that plane a little bit bigger. And press S. Okay. And we're going to bring him, and all we're going to do is go to one of these tabs here, this little guy, where it says rigid body. We're going to tag that. Okay. There's a lot of different things in here to make them behave in different ways, but the collision is usually convex hull. We're just going to use the mesh, and so it'll collide with the mesh. Surface response, friction, I'm going to bump that up. Keep bouncing this down. We're going to see if we can't get a believable thing going here. So I'm going to duplicate him now. Oh, you can do this as well. So if I press Shift D and Z and bring him up, check out duplicate options. You can do linked, and you can make a bunch of linked ones. So when you modify the bottom one there, but you're going to have to click linked every time. That will work. So let's delete these real quick. We're going to do Shift D. We're going to create linked. Now if we Shift D a linked one, it should be linked. Yeah. Okay. So maybe I want these fish just scattered on a dock. I don't think I would do more than a couple of these, to be honest. Now they're all linked together. They all have rigid bodies. If I press play, they'll fall, but they fall through the floor. Okay, so the floor needs to also be a rigid body. Instead of it being dynamic, you uncheck that. And then what should happen, yeah, so they're a little bouncy. Let's try to change some of the rotations so they'll maybe bounce into place a little bit. Change their weights so we can do that bottom one. Let's make it like 3 kilograms. Let's see what happens there. They should have all changed. Oh, no, they didn't. They should have all changed. All right, whatever. So get your settings right, I guess, before you do it. I like how they perfectly fell on top of each other. Let's make you bouncy then, since we're changing you around. We're going to make him a tiny bit bouncy, so he should pop back up and kind of kick them off of him. Maybe. Or not. Come on, guys. Work with me here. Stop stacking up on top of each other. All right, let's just move them around. Get a little bit more of a natural collision reaction out of them. All right. Let the animation kind of just run until they stop for the most part. So about there, it looked like it was good. And so now you have conveniently stacked fish on top of one another. Sometimes you'll still get little issues like this. You can always adjust accordingly and try to move things around a little bit. They fall like a ton of bricks, though. I mean, technically you would have a fish kind of stacked on top of another fish. So if you take all of these and just raise them a little bit, I mean, that's a possibility that they get stacked. Not likely, but possibility. I would, you see, you can just kind of scatter them a little bit yourself if you have to. No, move, fool. Why you keep the animation won't let me move it? All right, I see how it is. Let's do this real quick then. Let's see if the floor will make them bounce. Yeah, that's pretty believable. I like that. They're not hovering. This guy is a little bit, but it rotates you just a tiny bit. They're all going to get raised up a little bit in a second, I think. So, yeah, all three of these guys are. Okay. Doesn't want to. Convert these to, select them, object, convert to mesh. Oh, it was already in a mesh. So set parent. Clear parents and keep transformation. Let's see if that worked. Oh no. What happened? Oh, I only had those ones selected. That's fine. Alright, so maybe we'll get rid of one fish then. So yeah, you have to play with this a little bit and get used to it. I'd have them in the floor just a tiny bit on the z-axis. So now what I would do is I'd grab all these guys, as many of them as I can, press Control J, join them together. They shouldn't try to animate anymore, hopefully. That'd be great. Oh, they try to animate as one piece now. All right. Then you can actually get rid of the rigid body. You don't need it. The original, this plane here, don't need it. These guys are, so we'll call this fish. And then you can just kind of lay things out however you want from here. Fish group. And let's do edit. Side view here. Orthographic. I want to move them up just a tiny bit. And I want to press object, set origin to geometry. We're going to do Shift S, cursor to selected. We're going to press N. We're going to do view, 3D cursor to 0. Now we're going to do object, set origin to 3D cursor. So the pivot point is now right on the bottom, in the center of these guys. So you can see how that works out, RZ. And so you'll always be able to position them correctly. And then move them back. When you export this to an OBJ file to bring it into a map in 3ds Max 5, it really, really, really likes everything to be dead centered. So place them back at 0, 0, 0. Okay. The original fish model, I would leave it as is personally. I think that's perfect, having the pivot point in the middle of it. You could place it towards the bottom side of it. Very easy to do that, but I would say this is like fish original personally, and then I would just hide it. If I wanted a single fish, I would duplicate it. So the original fish, I would hide, never touch it again. The duplicated fish, single fish, or fish single, whatever I'm naming, whatever my naming convention is here. I'd get rid of the group. I'd place him at 0, 0, 0. Go into edit mode. Side view, just press A, G, Z. You'll see if I separate them, that happens. We need to go to here and apply the mirror. So apply it, go to edit mode, G, Z, bring it up so that he lays pretty much flush with the floor. I always put a little bit underneath, and then that is that. So now we have a single fish on the side. We got these fish over here. Anytime you want to see them, you just click them on and off. And then, so that is how you can create fish props for GR. Doing all kinds of crazy stuff to lay them out to look kind of natural in maybe a cooler or like a grocery store or something, a market. And that's that. So we're going to save this again, fish on ice. There we go. And that's it for this one. What we kind of did, not really, sort of, is we just used images and we extract the textures to created a model and then extract textures from the reference image. The next video I'm going to be doing is going to be all about creating levels from, or scenes anyways, from images. It's pretty cool how you can set it up, and I'm going to show you that in the next one. So definitely check out the next video if you like this little tutorial on just making a fish prop. The next one's going to really be pretty intricate, and it's probably going to blow your mind away. So check it out. All right.